For months, Saudi Arabia and the UAE have locked horns on a number of political, security and economic issues. Differences span from oil quotas and the UAE's dramatic exit from OPEC to supporting rival factions in the Yemen and Sudan conflicts. But this week, a single carefully timed photograph and a powerful joint message of reconciliation put an end to the tension. Aman Kumar Himanshu reports on the geopolitical shift behind this calculated display of brotherly ties.
On 21st July 2026, the Gulf underwent a calculated and strategic transformation. Government officials from Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates launched a synchronized public relations campaign on X. It was choreographed down to the minute. It took place at exactly 1600 GMT, which was 7 p.m. in Riyadh and 8 p.m. in Abu Dhabi. Such was the extreme precision. Leading this digital handshake were Saudi Arabia's media minister Salman Al-Dosary and chairperson of the UAE National Media Authority Abdulla bin Mohamed Alhamed. Alhamed wrote that Emirati-Saudi relations are an extension of a shared history and deep-rooted fraternal ties between two brotherly peoples united by a single destiny. Similarly, Al-Dosary said that the relationship between the kingdom and the Emirates is a relationship between two peoples united by a shared history and heritage and wise leadership in both countries. That message of reconciliation was reinforced by a photograph shared by Turki Sheikh, a confidant of Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. 1 hour ahead of the posts by Saudi and Emirati officials, Sheikh shared a photo on X that he said had been taken days earlier. It showed Saudi Arabia's Defense Minister Khalid bin Salman and UAE's Vice President Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan, their arms over each other's shoulders and smiles on their faces. Saudi Arabia and the UAE, a story of brotherly relations and a deeply rooted partnership, Sheikh wrote on his social media post. UAE President's diplomatic advisor Anwar Gargash reacted to Sheikh's post by saying, "The biggest story in the Gulf is captured in a single photograph." He quoted a traditional verse about unity and strength. Spears, when together, refuse to be broken, and break if they part. On 22nd July, the UAE's Minister of Foreign Affairs issued a statement condemning the Houthi group's statements against Saudi Arabia, including threats to impose a maritime blockade on the kingdom. It reaffirmed the UAE's full solidarity with Saudi Arabia and its support for all measures aimed at safeguarding its security and stability. This carefully coordinated move dismantled months of speculation regarding a deep-seated rupture between the two Gulf heavyweights. To understand why this display of friendship between Saudi Arabia and the UAE attracted so much attention, it is important to look at the difficult months that came before it. The differences were not limited to one issue. They emerged across multiple fronts, from conflicts in the region to oil policy and economic competition. It included Yemen, Sudan, OPEC, Somalia and Somaliland, Libya, and Israel with respect to Abraham Accords. The biggest test came in Yemen, when the kingdom and the Emirates had initially stood on the same side against the Houthi rebels. But over time, their priorities began to diverge. Tensions escalated last year when Saudi Arabia carried out an airstrike on what it said was a shipment of Emirati military hardware intended for use by separatists known as the Southern Transitional Council. It is a Yemeni political and paramilitary organization. Formed in 2017, the STC's goal is the succession of southern Yemen to re-establish an independent state along the pre-1990 unification borders. The UAE denied sending weapons to the separatists and said that the equipment was intended for its own forces. The tensions also spilled into Sudan, where Saudi Arabia and the UAE allegedly backed opposing factions in the civil war. The UAE was accused of supporting the Rapid Support Forces, while Saudi Arabia maintained close ties with Sudan's army. This issue added another layer of complexity to their already strained relationship. Their partnership was also tested in the energy sector. For years, Riyadh and Abu Dhabi had differences within the OPEC Plus over oil production quotas and the level of influence each country should have in shaping global oil policy. These disagreements reached a critical stage when the UAE decided to leave the OPEC in May 2026. It reflected the UAE's desire for greater independence in managing its energy strategy. Their approaches to the Horn of Africa had also diverged over a period of time. Saudi Arabia maintained ties with the internationally recognized government in Somalia, but the UAE worked with Somaliland. Somaliland is officially recognized as part of Somalia, but in reality it functions as an independent entity. Through its logistics giant DP World, the UAE operates the Berbera port in Somaliland, expanding its commercial and maritime footprint in East Africa. The UAE and Saudi Arabia initially stood on the same side in Libya, but their interests sharply diverged over time, transforming Libya into another layer of their regional power struggle. The Abraham Accords and the broader approach to Israel are also a point of friction between Saudi Arabia and the UAE. The UAE signed the Abraham Accords in 2020. Saudi Arabia has not yet. The two countries also differed at times over responses to the Iran war, which threatened Gulf security and placed pressure on regional governments to coordinate their positions. The kingdom backed Pakistani mediation efforts, while the Emirates initially took a more hawkish stance on Tehran prior to the signing of the US-Iran Memorandum of Understanding. Both sides have since stressed that media coverage should highlight the foundations of the relationship and avoid undermining ties between the neighboring monarchies. Al-Dosary said in his post that the role of responsible media is to counter anyone attempting to portray a misleading image of the relationship between the two countries and to ensure accuracy in all published information. In the past few months, influential Saudi and Emirati social media accounts, pundits, and some media organizations had engaged in unusually open debate and criticism. In March, the UAE even banned Saudi TV Al Arabia's X accounts. For its part, Saudi Arabia had launched a media campaign against the UAE. Saudi or Emirati officials have not said whether these recent public displays of affection followed direct talks between Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and UAE's President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, or whether the two had agreed on a process for managing their differences. There was also no announcement from the Saudi Emirati Coordination Council, an institution that was established to deepen cooperation across economic security and development policy. Mohammed Baharoun, the Director General of the Dubai Public Policy Research Center, believes that the recent tensions between Saudi Arabia and the UAE were serious but not deep enough to permanently damage their relationship. He describes it as a storm in a teacup. He says that what the kingdom and the Emirates have in common far outweighs their divergences. Aman Kumar Himanshu's report for DD India.